Hey guys, back with another YouTube video. Today it's going to be a collections video. Now, as y'all may remember, in a previous video, I showed off the differences between my 4 119s that I've collected. Well, actually, I just got a 5th one today. My father helped me get this one off eBay. This one, I paid about $50 for it. I just gave my dad back the money. And this particular one is from 1967 to 1972. So this is the oldest 119 I've ever gotten. And I decided to redo this video because there's slight differences between these that I did not mention. And I'm glad no one actually commented about that, because I realized afterwards that I made a mistake and kept some details that I had forgotten about. Like, for instance, of course, when you look at the blades of all the ones from different ages, the blade style is different. Like, this is the 2021. This is the 2020 119 that I carry all the time. And this is one from 2002. And this one is from 1990. And this one is from 1972 to 1986. So they're all may look the same, but there's slight differences between all of them. Like, the first thing that I begin to notice over the years is the spacers between the guard and the pommel. The little black spacers that you see. And on the modern ones, the spacers are black. And on the 2002 ones, they're slightly brown. And then so on, when you get into this one's from 1990, same thing. Slightly dark, but still a color brown. And then on to the 1972 to 86 version, same thing. Brown. This one's actually a more lighter brown. The washers are brown on this one. And then on the oldest one, the 1967 to 1972, the washers are light brown, as you can see. You can see the color differences in the camera. And so that's one detail I did not mention, and I apologize for that. Next detail is on the blades. Blades are almost the exact same, but there are slight differences. Like, for instance, like I said, this is the 2021, and the grooves on the blades are almost the exact same on these two, the 2020 and the 2002. And when you compare the modern one to the older one, the one from 1990, the blade groove's a bit different, as you can see. The blade groove on the new one's a lot longer than the other one. That's the first thing you notice right off the bat. And on the blade on this one, same thing. The groove is a bit different when compared to the older one. The groove on this one's a little bigger than this one. And then when you compare it to the even older one, to this old one, and this groove is actually a lot thinner than this one. Sorry about the glare from the camera. The groove is actually thinner than this one when you compare them side by side. Now, blade length-wise, they're the exact same. Each one is the same blade lengths. And another thing that's different is the pommels. I mentioned that in a previous video, but this one is more different than the others. Like, for instance, if you watch a Buck episode of how these are put together, these are pinned together. These pommels are. And they're grounded flush on the modern one. Same thing on the 2002. But when you start getting into the older ones, the ones from, this one again is from 1990, you can start to see the pin just a little bit. Sorry you can't see that because I polished this one up. Then you get to the older one, the pin size stays the exact same. But now when you get into the even older one, can we get the other one? The pin size is different. I know it's hard to see on the camera, but the pin size on this one is actually a lot bigger than the pin size on this one. That's the difference between the oldest to the older one. Excuse me. Next differences is on the guards. Now, all throughout the ages, here, and here, the guards almost, no, let me rephrase that. All through the ages from 2020 to 2000 to 1980, the guards stay the same. But when you get into the 1972 to 86, the guard style is a little bit different. Then when you go even older and go to the 19 1967 to 72, it gets even older. It gets even weirder. Like, for instance, like I said, here's the 2021, and here's the guard shape on this one. And when you compare it to the older one, the guard shape is almost the exact same, just slightly different. This one's more curved a little bit and a little bit thicker. There's the difference on that one. But then when you compare it to the older one, the one from 1967 to 72, the guard shape is almost completely different. I know it's hard to see due to the camera glare, but the guard shape is almost completely different. This one is more grounded, smoother. No, let me phrase that. Grounded down right here. When it's compared to the traditional oval shape they've got in the brand new ones. So that's the main differences on the guards. The guards are a little bit different. And so another thing is the blade thickness. It stays about the same until you get to the really old one, the one from 1970, let me rephrase that, 1967 to 1972. Because when you get the modern one that you can buy today and compare it to the oldest one, the blade thickness is very different. I got to stand up and show you all this. Because if y'all see what I'm talking about, the thickness, it gets a little bit different. As you can see, it grounds to right here where you get a false edge right here. But when you look at the older ones, this one's a lot thinner than this is. And the way it's grounded is a lot different. Which then again, they did all this by hand back in the day. They didn't use machines. And this one starts to right here, where you start to put a false edge, instead of this one where it's to right here. That's the main difference between the older ones. Because the thickness on this one is very different to the other ones. That's the main difference on this one and the pommels. Now, as far as the way they're put together, it's almost the exact same. The handles are put together the exact same way. Another thing that's different is the finger choil. Which, let me get the modern one again. The finger choil is this little thing right here where you can grip it with your finger right here so you don't have to worry about cutting yourself. Now, when you compare it to the oldest one, the finger groove is very different. The way the blade is ground is a lot closer to the edge, a lot closer to the guard than it is when compared to the modern one. And that's another big difference is the choils right here. That's another big difference. Next is the way the blade is ground. If you look at the modern one, it's grounded straight like an arrow. When you see the other one, it's grounded a little bit downward. So that's the main difference. Now, I'm not going to mention the way the guard is bent right here because that one was obviously not done by factory. That was probably done by somebody who was using this knife. And I'm not going to count the sheaths in because a lot of people swap the sheaths over time, so that really doesn't concern me. The knife is what the main thing's about. Oh, excuse me. So anyway, those are the differences between all the 119s going all the way back to 1967 to 1972. So from 2020 to 1967 to 1972, that's when all of these are going. And if I ever get more, of course, I'll delete this video and re-upload it with another one because my collection is slowly growing. Thank you, Dad. I love this knife. Now, the first thing I'm going to have to do is, one of the things that really irritates me is when somebody takes a bench grinder to their blades. I always suggest don't do that because that's not what you're supposed to do to a knife. Because as you can see, it leaves a little line on the edge from where you hold it to a bench grinder like that. And I always hate it when people do that because you can severely mess up your knife and your edge. I always say if you're going to sharpen a knife, use a whetstone or use a file. Don't use a grinder unless you're a professional that knows what you're doing. So this one I'm going to have to hand sand with some 1000 grit sandpaper to get all these grind lines out. And then I'm going to, of course, repolish it. But the guard I'm going to leave alone because the knife is in such great shape. I don't want to risk breaking the guard trying to bend it back. So I'm going to leave that one the way it is. I'm just going to tune up the blade and make it look a lot nicer and repolish the pommel. Because the best thing is, even though the blade material is different throughout the years, the pommel material is still the same. All aluminum, easy to polish, you can always clean it up. And the handle material is almost the exact same. Like the middle sections here are all airplane plastic or some kind of plastic they used to use back in the day. Of course, like I said, the spacers are a little bit different because, like I said, they change colors over a period of time. Like it goes from light brown to dark brown to dark brown to darker brown and then to black. So anyway, oh, it's been talking too much. Excuse me. Anyway, those are all the differences between the 119s. If I ever get another one, I'll delete this video and re-upload it with another 119. I guess I'll end the video right here, and hopefully I'll get a 2021 119 to go with my collection so I can retire this 2021. This 2020 119, I mean. And I guess I'll end the video right here, and as always, stay sharp.